Welcome, folks, to the Devoxx UK 2025 speaker interviews. I have with me today the amazing Holly Cummins. Thank you for joining me, Holly. Holly has been given a couple of talks at Devoxx UK and the Mini Lab. She's been doing so much for this conference. Thank you so much for being part of our committee to select the talks, but also for helping out when we need great content. It's always a pleasure to see you on stage and a pleasure to meet you here on the hallway track. And happy to share more.
You said the Holly track.
The hallway, yes, the holy track.
Yeah, I have quite a few talks, but not so many that I've got my own track.
Yes, the holy track. We could make a. Yes. When there's going to be this big conference, we're going to have the holy track. Yes, the hallway track. Sorry. But yes, I'm going to have Holly here talk about the awesome things that she presented here, and of course. Any other awesome thing that she's working on, because I know you're working with Quarkus, school framework. So let's dive right in. First of all, the talk that grasped my attention, the one about saving the world, how developers save the world. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so they say that you should always under-promise and over-deliver. And I might have slightly overpromised.
What do you mean? I'm not going to learn how to save the world?
I mean, I think ultimately, we all do want to save the world. And perhaps none of us could actually save the whole world, but we can all do our part and we can all make things better. And so one of the things that I've been noticing is that if we improve the efficiency of our applications, that's kind of a plan for rollout. Because when we improve the efficiency, if we improve the efficiency rather than just, cutting out half of the application, the function of the application stays unchanged. And yet, usually the users using the application will be happier because we do things like reduce the latency, and so then their response times are better, so then they're happier. We reduce the cost, so our management is happier. And then as well, along with those two things, we reduce the energy requirements of the application, we reduce the hardware requirements of the application, and so then that's where the saving the world part comes in. And I think what I love about this is it's not one of those kind of icky trade-offs where we have the right thing to do and the thing that we don't want to do, and then they sort of, we have to choose which unpleasant choice. It's like, it becomes more awesome on every single metric if we do that investment in efficiency.
That's a very interesting approach. And I've seen some of your talks in the past when they were also focused on being green, on being efficient for the environment, because we also need to think about the world that is surrounding us, about the nature and all, although we do create software. So in the end, we can indirectly save the world with our work by improving our applications. That's a very, very nice message. And well, let's now dive to the technical side of things. There was quite a lot of AI here, and Quarkus with AI. Really, so much Quarkus in AI. Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, Quarkus is a really great platform for AI applications. And I think one of the things that we're realizing as our use of, as an industry, as our use of AI matures, we need to move past just, I've written a web page and I've got a simple chat back and forth and it's not integrated into anything else, and go to the sort of the next level where we have something that is integrated into the rest of our application ecosystem and also is something that we can rely on in terms of what we're getting out from the LLM. Is it all hallucinations and incorrect stuff? And so, that's not great. But then also in terms of things like, is it resilient? And as soon as you do an AI application, you're automatically doing a distributed application where you have external services that you depend on. They may not always be there, so how do you handle that? And in the Java ecosystem, we've already answered this question. We've answered this question really well, and we've had answers for a long time. So we know how to do things like failover. And the thing I love about it is because honestly, I don't want to think about failover. Yeah. Some people who get really excited thinking about it more into me. But if you just add the callback annotation, and then it's done without a lot of effort, or you can just add the retry annotation and then it's done. And so it means that you can get those kind of production grade qualities of service without having to do a whole bunch of tedious lifting or homework that you might have to do if you're working with something that was self-model. So that's sort of part of it, but then the other part of it is stuff like guardrails. So, I mentioned the hallucinations.
Yes.
If I'm going to take this LLM and actually build an application around it, I need to have some kind of guard, to determine what's going in and what's coming out. And so with LangChain J, there's a mechanism that you can have input guardrails and output guardrails. So you can say, for example, let's detect the prompt injection and let's stop it before it even hits the LLM. And then on the other side, what comes back out. Maybe I want to detect hate speech. Maybe I want to detect factual errors because I don't want to be passing those on to the users. And all of that integration just becomes easier. And then the sort of the last piece of integration that we need to do, if we're not just going to have like a text box with where a web browser with a text box going back and forth, is I don't want to just interact with this system through the mechanism of text. It's really great at natural language processing, but the rest of my application is not built around natural language, or shouldn't be, so that wouldn't be very efficient to do that in that way. So I have Java objects, and I want to be able to have the return type for my call to the LLM be an object, and then have it be automatically partial without having to classify properties to say, can you return me a JSON object, and then I pass it to my Aaron Marshall. I just, this is such a common pattern that we want to embed it into our frameworks. So with LangChain J, and especially with Quarkus integration with LangChain J, you get all of that ability to just really, with a tiny amount of code, integrate this really great, cool new technology into applications that do what we want them to do.
And speaking about Quarkus, because Quarkus works with extensions, for LangChain for Jane, is just one extension, or there are multiple extensions?
Lots of extensions.
Okay. I had to ask that.
Yeah. So the base model is that you've got your LangChain for J extension, and then you would add extensions for the backends that you, or certainly for the libraries that you might want to be using. So for example, you would probably have the LangChain for J OpenAI extension, and you might use that to talk to OpenAI, or you might actually use it to talk to another LLM that is just using the OpenAI API, because that's probably, I wish OpenAI Open API just becomes chaos, but the OpenAI API is close to a standard now, so you could configure your URL and your credentials, but then use the OpenAI extension. But there's such a lot of backends potentially now, and so there's such a lot of kind of mini integrations in that umbrella of that big LangChain J integration. So there's a lot of extensions.
Okay, no, that's good to know. It's great to see Quarkus stepping into the AI world and being there to help developers get a better experience when working with AI. Do you get to see all these cool integrations with AI somewhere in the dev dashboard, where I used to see things as well? Is there anything else added to the developer experience, like when you're working in dev mode, for example, with that? So
yeah, definitely. So one part of the because in Quarkus we talk about developers. So one part of the LangChain API is just the API and how simple it is and how nice it is to use. But then there is also the developer UI. So when you're working with an LLM, one of the trickiest things to get right is the prompt. And usually how we sort of, the system might have the prompt hard coded somewhere, or, it might be coming from a remote file or whatever. But in any case, often you're going to want to experiment 16 times with the prompt in your prompt engineering. And you could change it in code every time, and because Quarkus has the live reload, that would actually be fine. But we can do one better. So you can go into the dev UI, and then you've got a little pane of glass that allows you to directly talk to the configured LLM and try your prompts out and see what's coming back. So that's quite useful. And then we've got things as well like depending what the LLM is, maybe push a button and then you can get the image generation and just get that visualized. So it's quite a nice, just a little extra debugging also.
Nice. Nice. It's great to see this evolving even in the AI space, and you're just not just coding together with AI services in a closed assumption, and you're just assuming everything is working, and that developer dashboard, the developer UI is really helpful in that aspect. And second, joy.
Yeah, and this is kind of, it doesn't look as cool, but one of the things that I find really useful when working with integration is that you can set a config and then you can get all of the interaction, all of the JSON for the API calls coming out. It's a lot, but when you look at it, then you can suddenly see, oh, this is how it's working under the covers. This is what's being sent back. This is, maybe why it wasn't doing
what I was expecting. Yeah. Well, it's better to have a visualization of things instead of like just, going through the whole debugging and trying to figure out on your own thing.
Yeah, or worse yet, like having to use Wireshark or something.
Yeah. More tools, not that nice. Holly, it was a pleasure to have you here and to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time to tell us more about the cool things that Quark is, AI, and of course, how we can save the world as developers. I invite you all to watch the talks in the Devoxx channel. They will be there waiting for you. And of course, Holly is reachable on social media. So if you have questions to her, you probably already know that the Quarkus team is looking forward to feedback. So if you have any feedback for Quarkus and any of its extensions, you can direct that to Holly. She's going to be receiving it gladly. And as you probably noticed, or if you don't know, they do really act upon the feedback they receive. And of course, they also are welcoming contributions to the awesome framework. So it's a community effort, and everything is coming back to life with the contribution of everyone. Thank you again, Holly.
Yes, we reached this about 6 months ago. We reached 1,000 contributors.
Congratulations, 1,000 contributors. So, folks, there's another big community, almost as big as this conference, contributing and maintaining Quarkus. Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Holly. Folks, enjoy the videos from the Devoxx channel and stay tuned for more.